We're here with Cecilia Bissell on October 22nd, 2010. And would you tell us how you got to Battle Creek, Michigan, from your home near Detroit, Michigan? Do you remember that series of events?
How it happened that I came to Battle Creek?
Yes, you are the sister of Marion Clark, and you lived in Detroit. Then how did you get to Battle Creek, Michigan?
Well,
What year was that?
It was let's see, 38, 1938.
1938.
My dad got married in November of that year, or the year before, 37.
To a lady named Grace.
Yeah. And my grandma died, but on the 10th of December.
What was her name, Grandma?
Phoebe. It was my dad's mother. And after she passed away, of course I was going to school, Marion was going to school, but our stepmother started in her plot to remove us. But she was going to do it systematically, little by little.
Were you brats? Were you deserving, or was she just...
She
okay.
came in the bedroom one night and just said, I am a little too old to raise two teenage girls. And, of course, the way we were brought up, you didn't say anything back, you didn't ask any questions, and just listen to her.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 16. I just turned 16.
All right.
And she said, I think it's your mother's duty to take you girls. And I said, I did ask her, what did my dad say? Well, we haven't discussed it yet, but I know he feels the way I do. And so I told Marion, I said, I don't think we're going to be here very long. And I'm going to be prepared. So anyway, I didn't like it there to begin with because she wanted to make maids out of us. And she wanted to...
Maids out of you?
Yeah, she had boarders and she wanted us to do the ironing and all that kind of stuff because she knew that we were brought up to be able to do it. And so the 3 or 4 months went on and things didn't get any better. And of course I was at school most of the day. I didn't have to put up with it. But Marion didn't go to school until 2 o'clock. So she got pulled into doing the laundry and doing the ironing and all that, the house cleaning and all that stuff. So one day when I came home, she was crying, and I asked her what was the matter. And she told me that Grace wouldn't let her get her homework done, that she said the ironing had to get done. And I said, well, we got to do something about it. So I went to school, changed the records to go to Battle Creek, and I saw one of the boarders that I knew pretty well, and I asked him if he would drive us to Battle Creek if I paid for the gas. And he said yes. And so we went to Battle Creek.
One of the boarders drove you to Battle Creek?
Yeah. And when we walked in, all my mother said was, what are you doing here? That was all she said.
Because she didn't
know. We didn't tell her, you know.
Oh, she didn't know you were coming.
She didn't know we were coming.
And she had married Floyd Knopf at that point.
She'd been married.
Who was he was in the meat business.
Yeah, he was
next to, and she was a waitress at a, do you remember the name of the restaurant that she was a waitress at?
No, I know it was on Schoolcraft and Grand River.
Schoolcraft and Grand River Road, and it was next to a and he was a butcher there. And so she married, fell in love with him, and went to Colorado, oddly enough, why they went there, and then came back to Kalamazoo.
He was on his way to New Mexico.
Oh, what was going on out there?
He had a ranch out there.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he had a ranch. I don't know how big it was. 'Cause
You go to Colorado to get to New Mexico? You go to Colorado to get to New Mexico?
Well, at the time, that's what he did. I don't know whether there were friends, that, or who was there.
Okay.
And anyway, she caught up with him there, or he told her to get there, and they got married.
And then, but when you arrived in, was it Battle Creek or Kalamazoo when you left Detroit? Battle Creek. And she didn't know you were coming. Wow.
All I said to Marion, if we can't stay there, we can work.
So what happened after that? You stayed in, where were you living in Battle Creek?
One day.
Where were you staying in Battle Creek though?
One day, and then I got a job. Well, the day I got there, I got the job that night, taking care of 8 kids.
And you did that for a long period of time.
I did that all through high school.
And where was this? Where were you living? What street?
Serby.
Serby. And where was Gramanoff living?
Winter Street.
Winter Street. And then my mother, Marion Clark, lived where?
She lived with them. And then she met your dad. And then she worked in your grandma and grandpa's restaurant.
Clark's Grill.
Part-time.
And you, what was the name of the family?
Campbell.
The Campbell family. And how long did you take care of these kids?
Till I got out of high school.
A couple years?
It was January. Yeah, January of 1940.
Wow. And you took care of these kids?
I finished. Well, I couldn't. I graduated in January, but I couldn't go through the ceremony until May because they only did it once a year. And so I worked part-time here and there, cleaning houses and stuff like that. And I lived with Mr. and Mrs. Tammy. He was the music director up at high school.
How'd you run into him?
Well, his wife had to have surgery, and he knew that I had taken care of children before. So they had a new baby, and he wanted me to come and take care of the baby and his little girl until she was able to get around. And she had 2 surgeries right in a row.
What street was that in Battle Creek?
Greenwood.
You have an amazing memory.
Yeah,
You just snapped that right off. So after that, there's a story where you ran into this individual, and I think you told him no several times, but this guy thought you were pretty sharp, and he wanted you to go to the movies with him.
Well, I met him when I first came to Battle Creek. I met him through my stepsister.
Your stepsister was?
Edith.
I'm going to get you some coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, I met him. But he was her husband's friend.
Okay.
They were friends. They used to hunt together and fish together and stuff like that.
And so, how did that develop? You finally gave in and went to the movies.
I'd see him occasionally, but I thought he was too old.
How old was he?
Well, he was 8 years older than me, and I thought he was too old because I was 16 and he was 24.
So did you tell him that?
Yeah, I did.
Well, that didn't deter him. You still went to the Bijou theater with him.
No, that was
Later?
Was 3 or 4 years later.
You mean
it was 2 years later.
He started trying to court you, and it took you 2 or 3 years?
He would somehow be there when I was there.
He's a timely guy, anyway.
I think he and Edith planned it that way, but at the time, I didn't tumble because Nick and Jack were real good friends, and they would plan hunting and fishing and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I didn't tumble what was going on, And
Okay.
and then finally, he pestered me long enough, and I went to the show with him, and the rest is history.
And when did that history begin? What is the date of your marriage?
31st of October, 1940.
1940. And where was the wedding?
Maple Methodist Church, Northeast Capitol.
Northeast Capitol. And who all showed up?
His mother and dad, and the 2 witnesses.
And 2 witnesses. No, Marion Clark?
No,
Didn't
she was in Chicago.
Did you do this in secret?
She was in Chicago.
You didn't answer the question.
No, we didn't.
You didn't do it in secret.
No, it was planned.
It was planned.
You had to go and get a marriage license and have a test. You know.
And you were
the
married.
state required it.
And you were married to this fellow for 47 years.
That's right.
And where was the first place that you lived in Battle Creek together?
With his mother and dad.
And then
We lived there until 1945.
Then you got a job at some point with Kellogg's, didn't you?
No, I worked at Weston Biscuit before I got out of high school, before I graduated.
Water?
Okay.
Worked at Weston Biscuit for 3 years. And then I didn't get the job at Kellogg's till 52.
Wow.
When the kids were in school.
And then Jack, your husband, Jack Bissell, he eventually got a job at Clark Equipment Company, didn't he?
He worked at the city.
He worked in the city?
Yeah, for.
What did he do with the city?
It was on the snow trucks and
Okay.
things at night. He didn't like that. And then he went to the Battle Creek Dairy. And from there, he got the job at Clark's.
This is new stuff to me, and I've known you all my life. I had no. So at one point, there was some stability because you got a job at Kellogg's, and you were working. You did shift work for years, didn't you?
Yep.
And you used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then he worked shift work. He would get up at 6 or so, and so for a long period of time, you worked at Kellogg's and he worked at Clark Equipment. And until you two retired, you both worked there.
He worked 30 years at Clark's.
Right.
And I worked 27 at Kellogg's.
27 years. And then you two somehow, how in the world did you, when I started, when I was a teenager, I just remember playing golf with you. If you didn't have a golf partner on Friday, I'd slide in, you'd say, hey, will you play in the Friday night league with me? And somewhere along the line, you learned how to play golf. And you were a pretty good golfer.
Well, I don't know, I think the kids were probably 10 and 12. And we had some friends that belonged to Riverside. And then Marion and John decided to.
Marion and John.
Yeah,
Marion's your
they
sister and
decided
John was her husband.
To do it too, you know. And John said, it's a pretty good deal. He said, we can get in for, I think it was $400. And I told Jack, if we go and do that, and the kids like it, that would be the best babysitter there was. Because I wouldn't have to worry where they are, and you wouldn't have to worry. And so we scrounged up the money to get in. But at the beginning, it was only $48, But then they kept adding this and this and
Right.
this and this, and it eventually got to be $400 a year. And it was hard sometimes to make it because of, wages weren't they were good for us at the time. But everything else was going up. And the war started, everything. Oh my God. It was a mess.
So you were in Battle Creek during the war years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
all through those war years.
Oh yeah.
So when you retired, which is 27 years, was that what year was that when you retired? Do you recall?
80.
1980. And you had boxed everything from Kellogg Special K. I mean, you had worked on the line where you had to be on the stick
Yeah.
every minute.
Yeah.
For years,
It was-
27 years.
I worked in everything. I worked the belts, I worked inspection, I worked everything at some time or other during that
Right.
period.
And then then you retired in 1980. When did Jack retire?
Yeah, he
Within-
retired, let me see, 74. 74, I think.
In 74.
74. And mine officially was 81, but I got out of there in December.
And then your husband Jack died. What year was that? Was
87.
1987. And then soon thereafter, the family's oldest living member, your mother, Elmira Knopf, who eventually lived to age 100, she came to live with you in the 90s.
Well,
didn't
she came, no, she was 96 years old when she came to live with
And what year was that? Do you remember? 96. It had to be 1996 or 7.
90.
She was born in 1901, I think, wasn't she?
1900. 97.
Okay.
97.
And then she lived with you for several years.
4 years. Almost 4 years.
And all along the way, you've had to teach your sister, Marion Clark, how to play cards, haven't you? Here, let's see if we can catch her. There she is, the student, Marion Clark. And did she ever make you pay your golf debts? I mean, or did you beat her? I don't. You two were pretty even in golf, weren't you? Or how were you better?
Well, we used to bet some quarters, you know.
Quarters?
And I don't think maybe we changed $10 worth during the season.
Okay. Well, this is the end of a brief interview with Cecilia Bissell, sister of Marion Elizabeth Clark.
Yep.
And we're here in Seattle, Washington. Thanks, dear Aunt. Thanks. We enjoyed those memories.